Steed tries to smile as Ed just looks at him, taking in his thick wool winter coat, the knit hat Steed had pulled down over his hair, even though he knows it'll be a complete disaster later when they get home. His nose will too, gone all pink from the chill and his near constant fussing at it. Or more likely both. With anyone else, Steed would have felt uncomfortable with the attention. But it's different with Ed, who has never once judged.
Hello everyone. This is Our Flag Means Fanfiction, but this time you've got Gutis here. I am doing a podfic episode, one of our minisodes. We've done a few of these and I've contributed to a couple of them, so if you like listening to podfics but you don't want to pick them yourself, then we've got our little curated episodes here. This one, hopefully you've still got a bit of festive spirit in there, even though we're into January, because we're doing this one. They're all Christmas themed, all three of them. So hope you're not sick of Christmas stuff. And if you are, I guess maybe skip this one. So first up, we have someone new who's never been on the podcast before. It's Melinda, who has been joining in on a big multi-voice podfic I've been doing. So I also got her to get in on the Christmas-themed podfics. So this one is by Oh Just Peachy, and it's called Merry Christmas, Darling. It's very cute, little bit of family, domestic fluff, bit of a sick fic. And yeah, she's done a great job with it, so I hope you enjoy it. Oh, and this one's Gentlebeardie. We're going to start and finish with some Gentlebeardie.
You're listening to Merry Christmas, Darling by Oh Just Peachy. This podfic was read by Freaky Flob. Dad, look at this one! Louie's voice carries through the extensive lot of potential Christmas trees, and Ed meets Steed's eye with a knowing smile. They just chased down a similar shout from Alma, and Steed is already feeling wiped out from the effort. I think you're going to earn your hot chocolate tonight, Ed murmurs. Before Steed can reply, he's being tugged behind a particularly full tree and kissed, Ed's lips warm and sweet despite the chill of the December night. He doesn't even seem to mind when Steed sniffs, rubbing at his nose with the cuff of his jacket and grimacing.
Not so sure you want to do much more of that, Steed warns. Pretty sure I've caught a cold, he sighs. Just in time for the holidays. Think that cold's officially caught you, mate, Ed says. You look beat.
Steed tries to smile as Ed just looks at him, taking in his thick wool winter coat, the knit hat Steed had pulled down over his hair, even though he knows it'll be a complete disaster later when they get home. His nose will too, gone all pink from the chill and his near constant fussing at it. Or more likely both. With anyone else, Steed would have felt uncomfortable with the attention. But it's different with Ed, who has never once judged him. Not for coming out so late in life, or his divorce, or his many zany interests that had for so long been called too much or off-putting. Surely Ed wouldn't find a winter coat anything to run from. In fact, standing here in the warm glow of the Christmas lights, Steed feels lucky to have someone who looks at him the way Ed is now. Warm and fond and happy, despite the screaming kids and impending holiday cold and, well, all of it. Steed's about to say something entirely too sappy for the occasion, but he doesn't get the chance. Dad! Louie's insistent voice interrupts again, and they smile at each other before following the sound of it, Alma in tow. Despite everything, it is, by all accounts, the perfect night to pick out a tree. It's an early December evening, and Steed has the kids for the weekend. Their homework is done, and Ed is with them. He'd been thrilled to come with them, and has spent most of the night so far happily directing the kids towards the biggest and best trees, letting himself be pulled in this direction and that, and popping out to scare them every chance he gets. It's almost too adorable to watch, sending waves of liquid warmth coursing right through Steve every time he hears the three of them laughing together. A little more than a year ago, Steve never could have imagined this, that he'd be picking out a tree with anyone other than Mary, that he'd be happily divorced rather than complacently married, that someone like Ed would come into his life at all. All of it had felt so impossible that Steve had never let himself truly want it. But then Mary had met Doug, and told him she thought that they were all wrong for each other, and then, as if by magic, Steve met Ed at a work conference. And now, well, here they are. Louis, Alma, Steed and Ed shopping in the cold for the perfect Christmas tree that they would spend the night decorating to the nines. "I think this is the one," Louis says excitedly when they find him towards the back of the Christmas tree lot. It is a beautiful tree, the perfect height for Steed's living room, full and thick, and Steed can already picture all the kids' ornaments covering it. Alma is quick to agree, her own pick apparently forgotten. "That's the one, Dad! Don't you think, Ed?" she asks, looking between them. "It's perfect," Ed agrees. "Think you'll be able to carry it to the car? You're big and strong, right?" Alma plants her hands on her hips.
What? No way! Maybe if we all do it. I bet I could do it,
Louis offers excitedly, eager as always. Ed laughs, placing a hand on their shoulders. "I'm teasing. We'll just find someone to help us out with this, and then we'll be on our way home. What do you think? Hot chocolate and Christmas movies while we decorate it?" If Dad says that's okay, that is. Ed asks quickly, meeting Steed's eye with a smile. "Of course," Steed says, smiling back at them. How could he deny any of them anything, really, when he's so entirely happy? Ed fits in so seamlessly it's hard to believe there was ever a time before this. Ed manages to coax the kids into pre-decorating pajamas, insisting it would feel like a Christmas slumber party that way. Though Steed suspects this is just an excuse to get Steed into his own soft flannel pajamas without making a fuss about it. Steed's not entirely sure how it happened, but with Ed there, he spends a good portion of the night on the couch, a box of tissues beside him and a mug of tea steaming beside his mug of hot chocolate. "Extra marshmallows, just for you," Ed had murmured with a sneaky kiss on his cheek. He's glad for it, though. The trip to pick out the tree had sapped him of the last of his energy, and he's so happy to be home and warm and out of his work clothes that Steed feels he could melt right into the couch. "We need a picture with you in it, Ed," Alma says, holding up an ornament with a photo of herself, Louis, and Steed in it. "You do you?" Ed asks. Only Steed can hear the thread of emotion in the question. "Yes," Alma says, rolling her eyes like it's obvious. If Ed's eyes go a bit shiny at the insistence, well, Steed's the only one who notices that too. "Well, I think that can be arranged," Steed says from the couch. "Perhaps when I'm feeling a bit better?" He adds, then turns and muffles a cough into the crook of his arm. As the kids plan what they should wear for the new picture, where it should be taken, and bicker over which movie to watch, Steed feels his head grow heavy with congestion. His eyes threaten to close until he can't resist it a second longer. By the time Steed wakes up, the tree is completely decorated, the kids in bed, and Ed is curled around him on the couch, a movie playing quietly on the TV. "Hello, sleepyhead," Ed says quietly. He's changed into pajamas too, a mismatched pair of pants and one of Steed's long-sleeved waffle-knit shirts, his hair up in a bun pulled back away from his face. He looks perfect, and maybe it's the cold talking, or how completely and entirely perfect this night has been. But Steed is suddenly overwhelmingly sure that if he tries to speak, he'll do something silly like cry. "Hi," Steed squeaks, and sure enough, his eyes give a telltale prickle. Ed frowns, looking at him. "What's wrong, sweetheart? I thought I should let you sleep. You looked so knackered after we got back."
No, Steed says quickly.
"I appreciate that, really. And it looks so wonderful in here, and you're wearing my clothes, and the kids adore you. It's all a bit overwhelming, you know?" He sees the quick, momentary flash of panic over Ed's face, though, and corrects himself. Overwhelming in a good way. The best way, really. Ed visibly relaxes, then leans in and draws Steed in close, kissing him softly. "Sap," he smiles and kisses him again. "I do love those kids, though. And you, though I wish you weren't sick. It's alright, Steed shrugs. It's just a cold, with a touch of over-emotion, if you don't mind that, he says, scrubbing at his nose. He's definitely more stuffed up now than he was before his little couch nap, but he knows there's NyQuil in his immediate future. And besides, snuggling into bed with Ed is its own type of medicine. Speaking of over-emotion, they got me with that little picture comment. I wouldn't want to overstep, though, if it's too much too soon. Ed asks, a hint of nerves creeping back into his voice. A lot of things about their relationship could be considered too much too soon, really. But Steed, for once in his life, finds that he just does not care how it looks from the outside. He'd waited so long for moments like this, and he's going to enjoy every bit of it. Never, Steed says. He burrows himself in against Ed's chest. He knows he's being clingy, but he also gets the sense that they could both use a little bit of that right now. I'm glad you're here. Tonight. Every night. Ed smiles, strokes a hand through Steed's hair. Me too, he says. What do you say? Bedtime? Let me find some medicine and water for you, and you can tell me more nice things in bed? Steed smiles again, feeling himself melt against Ed's shoulder all over again as he nods his agreement. Perfect.
Such a lovely fic, that one. Now, next up, back in July, we had a certain event called a Jeffrey Fettering Weekend. I hope you guys all read a couple of those Jeffrey Fettering fics from that, because we don't get a lot of those. It was fun getting a whole bunch at once. Anyway, for that event, I'd thought, well, what's my favourite Jeffrey Fettering fic? I went and did a little podfic of that. It's by Lyra Talise, who's one of my favourite authors, and it's called Merry Effing Christmas to Doug. And that's because it's a Jeffrey Fettering and Doug meet cute. It's pretty great. I had a lot of fun voicing Jeffrey in this one, so hopefully you guys like what I did. Here we go. This is an Our Flag Means Death podfic of Merry Effing Christmas to Doug. It's written by Lyra Talise and read by Cheesecake3. It's rated teen and up audiences, and the relationship is Jeffrey Fettering and Doug. And I thought I'd read the additional tags for you. Alternative Universe 1 setting, fluff, meet cute, Christmas, kissing, fun and games. Jeffrey Fettering has a size kink, but not how you think. Mistletoe and flirting. Summary. Doug was looking forward to sharing a wonderful Christmas with his girlfriend Mary and her family. When she dumps him 4 days before Christmas for her friend Evelyn, he finds himself in a bar on Christmas Eve with no hope of Christmas joy. That is, unless Jeffrey Fettering and his horse have anything to say about it. It wasn't Doug's worst day. He'd had a number of bigger hurts to vie for that spot, but it wasn't a good one. He'd been somewhat hopeful when he'd started dating Mary Allenby. She was funny and honest and creative. Her art made him feel things. He had been looking forward to something like a family Christmas with her and her kids and her ex-husband. It would have been the cosy holiday movie of his dreams. But here he was, on December 24th, and he'd been summarily dumped in favour of Evelyn Higgins. He couldn't even blame Mary. The strong-willed, statuesque blonde was a magnificent woman, and he'd dump himself for her. It was just his Christmas plans had gone from warm and homey to sitting in this bar trying not to think about how empty his apartment was. "Ooh, crisp night out there, isn't it? So cold, my horse was nattering about it the entire way here, even with the extra blanket." Doug turned his head to look at his companion, finding a man with a balding head, round face, and a very bright smile. "You took a horse? To the bar?" "Oh, yes. Extraordinary way to get around, I find. There's a wonderful place to put him, just this block, which is why this is one of my favourite bars." Doug blinked. "That's different." "What are you drinking? Can I get you another?" Geoffrey asked cheerfully and seemingly unbothered by Doug's implied judgment of his mode of transportation. "You know, I adore the hot toddy this time of year, but this bar has a delightful boozy hot chocolate that would just knock your socks off." Doug hadn't thought the bar would be the kind of place to offer seasonal drinks, but he took another look around, realising he'd been pretty distracted when he came in. Now that he was paying attention, he saw that the bar had sparkly garlands and a decorated tree in the corner, and that the bartender was wearing a Santa hat. He may have been more down than he'd thought. "I like hot chocolate." Then he leaned in toward the man and said, as if offering a great secret, "Christmas is my favourite time of year." "Is it? How marvellous! Quite. Barkeep, 2 of your rather stupendous hot chocolates, please." He gestured expansively as if he were offering Doug the entire world. "You won't regret your choice, I guarantee you." Doug made a soft, pained noise. "I don't make the best choices, you know. I'm here because my girlfriend dumped me 4 days before Christmas." He was also immediately regretting his choice to disclose how unwanted he was to a complete stranger. "You? But you're... Well, I think you may be the most charming, handsome man I've ever seen. Who would dump you? And before Christmas? No, twaddle. I won't believe it. Why would anyone not want you? Oh, blast, cart before the horse again. Ha ha! I failed to ask for your name." "Hi, I'm Doug," he said, holding out a hand. The man took Doug's hand and shook it so enthusiastically that it was almost aggressive. "And I'm Geoffrey Fettering." "Well, Doug, I assure you that I wouldn't kick you out of bed for eating gingerbread men. Or other things," he said with a waggle of his eyebrows. "Oh," replied Doug, suddenly feeling a little overwarm in his jacket. The bartender set the drinks down in front of them and Geoffrey handed a $100 bill to him. "No change. Christmas, dear." Geoffrey looked Doug slowly up and down, from his fluffy medium brown hair and stubble-covered jaw to his white sneakers, and smiled appreciatively. "So tell me, Doug, what were you looking forward to most about Christmas?" "I like all of it. The lights and the music, finding the perfect gift. But the thing I was looking forward to the most was having someone to spend it with. I don't have a family, and it was going to just be nice to spend it with other people. It's too late to make other plans now." "No, I don't think it's too late to change plans. Life can be quite the whirl, but one must keep one's eyes open. Never know what treasures one might find in the unlikeliest of places." Geoffrey smiled broadly at Doug, his eyes alight with a suggestion of where such treasures might be found. He then took a tiny sip of his drink, getting whipped cream on his upper lip. He looked at Doug with a conspiratorial air, grinning as he said, "You know, I have shocking information. I too am set to spend Christmas alone, but And here he dropped his voice to an eager, carrying whisper. We don't have to. Oh, said Doug again. He took in the man's bright smile, his warm regard, and cheerful attitude. You'd want to spend Christmas with me? Oh, very much so. We could get up to any number of sprightly Christmas games. Find out if we've been naughty or nice. I make an absolutely charming breakfast spread. Oh, said Doug. You mean with me? I very much do, Geoffrey said, his smile unwavering. Yes, said Doug, finding that he very much liked this cheerful, bold man. He thought he could use a little boldness himself, so he leaned over and kissed the whipped cream off Geoffrey's lips. Said Geoffrey, and then, when they broke apart, I'd love to take you home with me. Can I fit? Doug could feel his eyebrows pulling way up, even as the question fell out of his mouth. On your horse, he clarified, which made Geoffrey's eyebrows shoot up in return. I don't see why not. Let's finish our drinks, Doug, and then we'll see how many places I can fit you. Geoffrey winked and drank, and Doug drank with him and felt the tiniest amount of hope kindling in his heart. When they were done, Geoffrey led Doug out the door and onto the street, taking a right turn and walking to a little lot adjacent to the bar. There he approached a car that had been lovingly tucked under a water-resistant cover. He pulled it off to reveal a vintage Ford Mustang. Here he is! Doug, meet horse. He patted the car on the hood and then folded the cover and put it in the back seat. Come along, off we go. I can't wait to get some nog in you, if you know what I mean. Doug opened the door and slipped into the seat, causing Geoffrey to merrily laugh as he was now sitting under a bundle of mistletoe attached to the headliner above the passenger seat. That's a kiss for me, he exclaimed and leaned over to Doug, who discovered that he was perfectly happy to have another opportunity to kiss Geoffrey, and so he did so. Only a quick peck, but then he returned for more kisses until they were both a little overheated and a little chilly from sitting in the parked car. Geoffrey drove them to his house, Christmas carols playing softly on the radio. As they travelled, he asked Doug if he'd ever played sardines, which is how Doug ended up finding love again, while smooshed together with Geoffrey in an antique wardrobe, hands fumbling with each other's clothes in the dark. Turned out to be a very merry Christmas indeed. The end. And now we're to our third and final podfic for today, which is an excerpt from Judy's fic. Now, Judy's been on the podcast a couple times now, and her fic is called Slower and Gentler, Wiser, Free. That's her long fic that she's been writing for quite a while now. It's already 120,000 words, and there's more to come. And so if you really want to get stuck into a nice long one, that's a good one to do because she does update it regularly. It is rated explicit, the whole fic is, and then she's read a little excerpt from the Christmas chapter, which got published recently. So here we go.
Slower and Gentler, Wiser, Free. Written by Judy's Oranges and narrated by Judy's Oranges. That's me. Chapter 26, The Shore Holiday. Steed and Ed were putting up Steed's ridiculous number of holiday decorations. 36 various themed nutcrackers, holiday gnomes, a huge collection of Santas from across the world, and more. Fuck, Steed, this is a lot of shit, Ed said, eyes wide at the totes in front of him. Yes, admitted Steed sheepishly. When we divorced, Mary let me keep everything. I was very happy since I bought them all for our old house. I love the holidays. Yeah, no shit, Ed mumbled. Ed was unwrapping yet another piece to Steed's porcelain nativity when he said, So, Steed? Yes, love, replied Steed as he looked around the house for where to hang his gingerbread men. When I booked this gig, Izzy had me contracted off the week of Christmas to New Year's, and since Christmas lands on a Monday this year, I'll be off from the 24th. Oh, that's wonderful. You could really use a break, too. You need some time off that knee. Steed wiped off a dusty holiday Santa house from his model village. Ed leaned back on the sofa and said, Yeah, so I was thinking maybe I could come down and spend a couple days with you. I could come after Christmas or stay at my apartment until you have time. Steed looked crestfallen. What's wrong? Ed said quickly, noting Steed's expression. Shit. He should have avoided mentioning his break. I don't have to take it off. Steed interjected. No, of course I want you here, but would you consider coming before Christmas and stay longer? I had hoped you could at least come for Christmas Day, but this is even better. It would be perfect to share those days with you. Really? Asked Ed, as a slow smile spread across his face. Oh my God, Edward, yes, of course, but I understand if you want to skip the festivities. It's often loud and chaotic. I do some of the time with the crew, some with the kids, and some of the time with Doug, Mary, and the kids, but I know I love it. Steed smiled. Thank you, Steed. I would love to be here with everyone for the holidays. I haven't spent a holiday with a family maybe ever, Ed said quietly, taking Steed's hand. He didn't want to sound sad or pathetic, but he felt very touched by Steed's invitation. Mom passed away when I was only 22, and she usually worked on holidays, but we would do something small, sometimes with my cousins, but usually just us. Dad was always off somewhere, or in jail, and then dead, thank God. I'm alone, Steed. I only have you. He started to feel the tears form in his eyes. Normally he would blink them away, but with Steed he didn't feel he had to hide his feelings. Steed would know anyway. He could read Ed like a book. Steed wrapped Ed in his arms. Oh, Edward, he said softly. Ed put his arms around Steed's waist and clung to him. He always felt safe with Steed holding him. You're not alone. I love you, the kids love you, the crew loves you, Doug loves you, Mary loves you. That's what makes a family. Does that mean I have to take Mary and Doug too? Ed chuckled in Steed's ear. Steed pulled back and giggled, then lightly smacked Ed's ass. Afraid so. Ed came to Steed's house late on the 23rd. Buttons helped him bring in the obscene number of gifts he had for the family. He had bribed Frenchie with a monstrous holiday bonus to wrap them, and Frenchie had done an artful job. Izzy had given Ed a huge basket of candies and chocolates, and Ed gifted Izzy with a Tag Heuer watch. When he told Izzy where he would be for Christmas, Izzy was strangely quiet. He gave Ed a hug and told him to relax but be careful. Careful of what? Ed wondered, but he was so relieved Izzy didn't give him a ration of shit, he just hugged him back. Ed had given the entire production a yearly membership from Omaha Steaks, with the vegan option for those who didn't eat meat. When he opened the door, he saw Steed asleep on the sofa and a mess in the kitchen. He smiled and helped Steed get into bed. The dishes could wait. Christmas Eve promised to be hectic. Did you take your meds? Steed asked. It's bound to be a stressful day. Yep, all good, babe. Ed didn't know what to do with himself at Mary and Doug's. Doug's mom was old-school Italian, so dinner was traditional 7 fishes. She was tiny, barely 5 feet, and bossed everyone around. The kids called her Nonna and basically ignored her demands, even though they all seemed to share a lot of love. Doug's dad was polite and friendly, and Mary's mom looked like she didn't care what was going on while she sat with her wine. Doug was fighting with the fireplace while Mary worked on desserts. Doug's dad and Mary's mom sat in the living room watching A Christmas Carol and arguing over George C. Scott's performance. Steed was making a huge mess while he put together eggnog and mulled wine. Mary was huffing and puffing at him, but kept her opinions to herself. Nonna decided Ed was the only one who she could force into helping her. At first, she was shocked by his appearance. Why you have those tattoos? I like that beard, though. Ed drew a blank, not knowing how to respond when Steed rescued them. "Angelina, don't pick on Edward. He's simply lovely," Steed admonished her while giving her a kiss on the cheek. "I'd be nice, because Steed here is a good boy, so you must be okay too," she allowed. "Thanks," Ed said, completely confused. Nonna made Ed chop, dice, and mince and kept yelling at him to stir the sauce. Loud holiday music blared from Alexa. Nonna didn't get the whole AI system and kept asking who Alexa is and why she isn't helping. Ed tried to keep a straight face. There was a ton of food and chatter. Ed couldn't get a word in, and even though he was totally baffled concerning the traditions and happenings around him, he was never so happy during a holiday in his life. Even assisting Nonna had been delightful. He wanted her to like him, even though she was Doug's mom, not Steed's. He also had a feeling Nonna's opinion carried a lot of weight. After dinner, there was a plethora of desserts. Mary had even made a gorgeous pavlova to honor Ed and Steed's kiwi roots. Ed kept it together, even though he had to excuse himself to the bathroom to have a short cry and wash his face while he calmed down. When had anyone considered Ed's family roots? Ed got hit again when the kids brought out a menorah. Ed didn't practice Judaism, but the idea that they had gone out of their way to get him a menorah was inconceivable to him. He'd never even had anyone say Happy Hanukkah to him except his mom. Ed had assumed they would go to Steed's and then return here in the morning, since Steed said he always opened gifts with the family before they went to Evelyn's for the day. Evelyn was Mary's best friend, and her kids were great friends of Steed's children. They loved spending time together, and since Evelyn made Steed nervous, he usually skipped that party and relaxed the rest of the day before spending the next day with the crew. Turns out they were expected to sleep at Mary and Doug's. Ed had found out in the morning when Steed asked him what he would like to pack for the overnight. "Overnight?" Ed had asked. "Shit!" Steed exclaimed, smacking his forehead with his hand. "I didn't tell you. Fuck!" "We're staying overnight?" Ed asked weakly. "Well, I always stay so I can see the kids open their gifts as soon as they wake up, but we don't have to. I always do that, so I guess I forgot to mention it and ask you. We can come back, or you could take the Scion back here for the night and then come back, or stay here and relax until I get back. Whatever you want," Steed said nervously. "No," replied Ed. "I'll go. I want to be with the family." "Are you sure?" asked Steed tentatively. "You don't have to. You might be exhausted after dinner." "I'm sure, Steed. If it's too much, I can leave and come back. I'm sure they would understand," Ed said, patting Steed on the back while pulling out some warm PJ pants and a Star Wars t-shirt. He handed them to Steed to pack. "Could be fun." Steed smirked. "I don't know about that, but one can hope." The thing Ed wasn't expecting was the sleeping arrangements. Mary's mother went home after dinner. She apparently had enough of the holidays and wanted to go to bed, then sit with her wine and watch Hallmark holiday movies the next day. Doug's parents were sleeping on the pullout in the basement, so Steed and Ed were forced to sleep in Alma's room while she shared with Louis, a fact she was not thrilled about. The two men were squished in Alma's full size, a stupendous feat considering both were around 6 feet tall. Cuddled up in the bed, Ed looked around at Alma's posters and knickknacks. Steed kissed Ed deeply. "I wish we could make love." "Yeah, me too." Ed huffed into Steed's mouth as his hands trailed over Steed's clothed stomach, Christmas PJs covered with Santa Claus heads. "I don't feel right doing that in Alma's bed, though," Steed said, caressing Ed's face. "No, you're right. That would be fucked," Ed agreed, moving his hand to hold Steed's face. "Let's go to sleep. I have a premonition that tomorrow is going to be a bit of a day." "We can open our gifts together alone at the house tomorrow night. Just the two of us," Steed suggested. "We can have a drink and something to eat and open gifts. We could make love. That sounds so romantic on Christmas Day." Ed felt a stirring down below just from Steed saying those words. "Yeah, that sounds perfect, baby, but let's stop talking about it or I'm going to go crazy for you." "Ha!" Steed giggled. "Okay, darling. Good night." He kissed Ed lightly. They awoke with Louis and Alma bashing in the room and yelling, "It's Christmas! Presents!" "Fuck!" Ed yelled as he was startled from his slumber. The kids laughed and promptly ran out in search of their next victims. "Edward," Steed hissed. "Language." "Shit, sorry." By the time they came downstairs, Mary was putting together a tray of pastries while Nonna complained she would have baked something fresh. Doug was working on coffee and juice and mimosas for the adults. Steed went under the cabinet and grabbed some large trash bags while Ed stood around feeling foolish. Merry Christmas?" Ed questioned the bustling kitchen. "Oh, Ed, Merry Christmas," Mary said, coming to kiss him and Steed on the cheeks, while everyone else called out, "Merry Christmas!" The action moved into the family room around the big tree. Nonna, Grandpop, and Mary sat on the sofa with the drinks and pastries on the coffee table in front of them. Doug sat in the big armchair. Steed sat on the floor and tugged Ed down with him. Ed's knee twinged, but he didn't say anything. The kids loved all their gifts. Ed hoped he had chosen well, and he was pretty sure he did, since the kids were whooping and hollering all over their presents. He gave Louis an Oculus virtual reality set. Alma received 2 Broadway tickets to her new Obsession show and a backstage tour. Mary and Doug were given a weekend in his apartment, including all paid lunches and dinners, tickets to a supper club show with Doug's favorite comedian, and a limo ride to the city and back. When Steed had told him the grandparents would be there, Ed was smart and brought Mary's mother a bottle of fancy wine and an autographed picture of Frank Sinatra for Doug's parents. They were very pleased. Nonna looked at Steed and said, "He's okay by me." While Ed accepted thanks and hugs from everyone, Mary got up and refilled everyone's coffee cups. When she got to Ed, she winked and whispered in his ear, "You're a hit." He smiled back, grateful. After even more food, cookies and scones and a nutty bread with hot chocolate, Mary, Doug, and the kids had to get ready to go to Evelyn's. Doug's parents headed home to recharge in the peace of their townhouse. Hugs were given all around and promises to see each other soon. Ed and Steed left with their gifts, handmade creatures from Louis, and a studded belt for Ed with a tie for Steed from Alma. Mary and Doug gave Steed wine and a painting of Steed's cottage, a book of Maori art, and a complete collection of Tennessee Williams plays for Ed. Doug's parents had given Steed homemade panettone cake and brandied figs from the figs of their very own trees. They even had a gift for Ed, more brandied figs and struffoli, a type of dough ball covered with honey and sprinkles. Mary or Doug must have told them about Ed's sweet tooth. So many gifts. The presents from this Christmas added up to more presents than he'd ever received in his adult life, besides the ones he's recently been gifted by Steed. Ed was overwhelmed by the gifts and attention. Usually all he did for Christmas was to stop by Wee John's or Izzy's for an hour before going home and drinking himself to sleep. The holidays were lonely for Ed and reminded him he had no family. Both men were knackered, so they decided a good nap was in order. They got into their comfy clothing, laid down, and were asleep in minutes. Upon waking up, Steed went to the kitchen to make hot apple cider with just a dash of whiskey and a plate of goodies he had planned. He made a charcuterie tray with olives, cheese, crackers, smoked oysters, brie, apples, and other tidbits. He also set out a tray with Mary's cookies, macaroons, and chocolates for dessert. He placed everything on the table by the big sofa while Ed turned on all the Christmas lights he had strung outside and lit candles in the house. There was a large box in the corner with no tag. "What's that?" Steve asked, pointing to it. "That's for the crew," Ed replied, sitting on the floor with his back leaning on the sofa. He stretched his leg out. Between Alma's bed and sitting on the floor all morning, his knee was aching. "It's a professional karaoke machine." "Oh, Edward, that's perfect!" Steed cried out as he lowered himself to the floor, too. "There's a case of Prosecco being delivered tomorrow, too." "Well, if they weren't already in love with you, they will be now," Steed said. "I know I am." He leaned forward and gave Ed some light kisses. They had agreed that they would not be giving each other any lavish gifts, but of course they both did. Ed gave Steed 3 silk shirts, custom fitted to the shirt Ed had snuck back to the city for perfect sizing. Italian loafers, soft as butter. An entire laundry basket filled with all the toiletries, lotions, bath salts, and body products Steed loved best. There was also a cashmere coat, a giant-sized bottle of lube as a joke gift, also a gift for Ed, and a card stating a brand-new Tempur-Pedic mattress would be delivered on the 27th. "Edward," Steed admonished, "it's too much. You spoil me and the family." Ed frowned. "It's not. I had a couple other things I wanted, but I fucking ran out of time." He so wanted to buy Steed more items for his backyard, including a hot tub, but he also didn't want to look like he was making changes in Steed's house. After all, it wasn't Ed's home, but he knew Steed would love the bed. Steed laughed. "You bought me a bed. That's enough." "Yeah, but I'll use that too," Ed rationalized as he brushed Steed's comment off with his hand. "Your turn," Steed sang excitedly as he clapped his hands together before handing over his gifts to Ed. Steed had bought Ed beautiful pearl hairpins for when he did his updos, a new pair of boots to replace his current pair that was probably 20 years old, a pair of leather pants in a deep green color, 2 pairs of silk pajama pants, a card to buy more lives on that horrible video game he loved, a huge bucket of peanut caramel corn with extra caramel. There was also a glimmering gold earring made to look like a dangling sword overlaid with opal. "Steed," Ed breathed, "this is so beautiful." He looked at Steed with his eyes bright. He pushed his hair back behind his ear and put in the earring. "How do I look?" "Fantastic." Steed's joke gift to Ed was a butt plug, dark purple with a sparkly base. "Didn't see that coming." Ed laughed heartily. Steed giggled and then said shyly, "You seem to like to prep yourself for me. Thought this would help." Ed was thrilled with his presents, but the last gift brought tears to his eyes. "How?" he whispered. In his hand was a portrait of his mother. It was the same picture Ed kept in the battered frame, but the photo was new and crisp. It looked like it had been taken minutes ago, not decades. He could see every feature of her face, and the frame was a heavy walnut. "I took a scan of it one day when you were in the shower," Steed said. "I hope you don't mind. I sent that picture to a professional photo restoration company, and they came up with what you see there." Ed traced his mom's forehead and cheeks on the glass. "Mama," he said softly. Do you like it?" Steed asked, sounding nervous. Ed couldn't do anything but nod his head quickly as he tried to keep the tears at bay. He reached forward, grabbed a handful of Steed's shirt, and dragged him in for a one-armed hug while he clutched the picture of his mother to his chest. How was Steed so perfect? Who else would think of the perfect gift like this? Ed wiped his eyes and smiled. "Thank you," he whispered, letting go of Steed. "I love it. I love you." After all the gifts were open, it was time to eat and watch A Christmas Story. When it was over, the two sat staring at the little electric fire for a moment while finishing the spiced wine. Ed leaned his head onto Steed's shoulder, and Steed canted his head to rest on Ed's. Ed turned and mouthed a long kiss to Steed's neck. "Edward," Steed said quietly, "do you want to make love?" "Yeah," Ed whispered. Ed gathered up all the paper and ribbons into a trash bag while Steed spread blankets and pillows on the floor next to the holiday tree. They lay on the floor looking up into the lights of the tree. "It's so pretty," Steed said. "I just love the whole combination of green and lights and ornaments." "Yes, this is a great fucking idea," Ed replied. "I don't usually do a tree since my house is small. I just admire Mary's tree. Sometimes I help them decorate theirs." "You don't usually get a tree?" Ed asked. "No." "What makes a difference this year?" Ed wondered. Steed turned his head to look into Ed's eyes. His thick beard looked multicolored from the light shining on the gray. Steed glanced up at Ed's hair flowing behind him on the blanket, his firm cheekbones and his sweet nose. He was as beautiful as any statue in any museum. You're the difference, he said. In these lights you look so lovely. Ed kept his eyes on Steed. Can I kiss you, baby? He whispered. Please, Steed whispered back. Ed leaned forward and Steed closed his eyes. Even after these months together, Steed anticipated Ed's kiss like it was the first time. His heart started pounding in his chest and he felt a little lightheaded. Ed placed a gentle kiss on Steed's lips, and then he kissed the tip of Steed's nose. He kissed Steed's lips again, his tongue teasing the seam. Steed opened his eyes and saw Ed's molten brown eyes staring at him. He brought a hand to Ed's cheek and Ed nestled into it. When they locked eyes again, the hot ember they shared started to burn into a fire, and they surged together. Steed pressing his tongue deep into Ed's mouth and grabbing his face. Ed clasped Steed's shoulders while their tongues slipped then wrapped together. Ed kissed down the column of Steed's throat and sucked at the hollow, while Steed clutched Ed's head to his throat. Ed ran his tongue across Steed's collarbone and Steed panted harshly. He was so turned on. He felt like he couldn't breathe as Ed pulled away from his neck and stared at each other for a moment. Ed's eyes were dark and wide and they were both gasping. Simultaneously, the men sat up and began to pull off each other's clothes. Ed pulled Steed's shirt from his pants while Steed opened Ed's shirt buttons, pulling the shirt off while Ed yanked Steed's over his head. They kept their eyes on each other while they stripped, passion burning between them. Steed got on his knees to unbuckle Ed's belt and pull his pants and boxers down, before returning to sitting to yank them off along with his own socks. Ed stood up and pushed his black cargos off, no socks or underwear to hinder his nakedness. They sat on the blanket, taking each other in. Steed lurched forward and brought his lips to Ed's chest. He licked Ed's left nipple while his fingers worked the right. Steed dragged his tongue up Ed's throat. He got on his knees so he could kiss under Ed's ear, the spot he loved. Ed got on his knees and reached behind and grabbed Steed's ass. He groped for a moment before pulling Steed in tight to himself, and when he did, their cocks brushed together and Steed let loose a large gasp. Ed's bottom teeth bit the corner of his top lip, and he pressed his forehead to Steed's while he used his grip on Steed's ass to push his cock onto his own. Steed moaned loudly. He felt wild and filthy. All he cared about, all he wanted in this world was to feel Ed's cock on his. He mirrored Ed's actions by grabbing handfuls of his ass and pulling him forward as they thrusted over and over. Steed moaned his pleasure while Ed panted. He went in for another deep and messy kiss while they continued to grind their cocks together. Ed pulled away from the kiss with a wet smack, grabbed Steed's biceps, and hurriedly said, "Get the lube, Steed. Get the fucking lube." Steed nodded, got up, and trotted quickly to the master bedroom. He checked the nightstand, but there was no lube. He looked around the dresser and the bed. What the fuck? He crouched down and saw the bottle on the floor. It must have fallen off the bedstand. Steed snatched it up and took off back towards the family room. He stopped abruptly to look at Ed's magnificence. He was still on his knees, his eyes closed, his head back, and his mouth open, hair flowing down his back. He was slowly stroking his own cock. Steed was frozen seeing Ed give himself pleasure. He was torn between going to Ed or staying there and watching the glorious sight in front of him. Ed in the glow of the fireplace, with the Christmas lights shining and fucking his own fist, was the most stunning thing Steed had ever seen in his life. Steed was dumbfounded. How can one man be so breathtaking? How is that even real? Steed wanted to continue to stare, but he knew if he didn't have Ed right then, he would die on the spot. He walked over to Ed and put his thumb on Ed's lower lip. Ed knew what Steed wanted even without the request and opened his mouth. Steed pressed his stiff cock deep into Ed's mouth. "Oh, fuck," he said. "Oh, Edward." He began to pump his hips and move his cock in and out of Ed's mouth, while Ed continued to stroke himself. Steed felt transfixed watching Ed take him while jerking himself off. After a few moments, Steed removed his cock and got on his knees. He put his hands in Ed's hair and brought their mouths together. He plunged his tongue in, and Ed groaned loudly. "What can you give me, love?" Steed whispered as he dragged his tongue over Ed's cheeks and lips. "Can I fuck you?" Steed murmured. He worked his kisses across Ed's chest as he reached down and grasped Ed's cock. "God, you're so hard," he said as he slowly pumped Ed's cock. Ed took the lube and pushed it toward Steed's chest. "Hurry," he breathed out. "Open me up." Ed got onto his knees and folded his arms to make a pillow for his face as Steed stared at that perfect ass. Steed roamed his hands over the tight muscles. Ed was toned naturally, even in middle age. He had some soft spots that made Steed love him more, knowing even Ed has these symptoms of age. "Come on, baby," Ed whined. "I want you." Steed slicked up his finger and then dripped some lube onto Ed's entrance. He gently inserted a finger while his other hand roamed Ed's thighs and ass. "Another," Ed moaned. Steed was pressing 2 fingers into Ed when Ed began to move his backside in a circle. Holy fuck, it was so sexy. Just a small twist of his hips made such a sensuous scene. Steed's cock was so hard and strained it almost hurt. "Fucking gorgeous," he said without even thinking. "More." Steed pulled his fingers out, applied more lube, and added the third. Ed muled and pressed back onto Steed's fingers, head thrown back and hair flowing. "You want me like this?" he asked, looking over his shoulders. Steed whispered, "Let me get on my back." Steed crawled forward and laid down. Ed looked confused, but then a small smile grew across his face. Ed crawled over him and straddled his waist. "Is this what you want?" "Yes, so much," Steed replied. "I've created a monster," Ed teased as he rose up and leaned his hands on Steed's chest. He lowered himself onto Steed, and when he had inserted the tip, Steed's vision went blank. The feeling of Ed's tight hole making him groan. Steed reached to steady his cock so Ed could hold his balance as he moved his ass back and forth and slowly worked his way down. When he bottomed out, he groaned loudly. "Oh, fuck, Steed. I feel so full." Ed began to work up and down Steed's shaft, leaning on Steed for support. Steed reached up and pushed the fingers of his clean hand into Ed's mouth. He licked and sucked greedily. Steed took those fingers and used the wetness to play with Ed's nipples. Ed sucked in a shuddering breath and worked himself harder up and down Steed's cock. "Do you like it?" Ed asked. "Oh, God, yes. You feel so good on my cock." "Steed, I want to fuck myself on your cock forever." Ed began to get worked up and was impaling himself over and over until he leaned back. By the way he moaned, Steed knew the new angle hit that electric spot in him. Ed's moans became closer together and louder as he started to reach his climax. "Can you come without me touching you?" Steed asked. "I think so," Ed said breathily. "Oh, fuck, I'm close. I'm gonna fucking come. Oh, God, baby, make me come." Ed threw his head back and came untouched all over Steed's chest and belly, like long ropes of pearls decorating his body. Ed collapsed onto Steed's chest into his own spend. He laid there and tried to catch his breath as Steed reached over and fumbled for some piece of clothing to clean it off. He didn't even pay attention to what it was. Ed pulled off his cock and got on his knees next to Steed. "Edward," Steed said, his voice low, "can I take what I want?" "Oh, yeah," Ed said, his eyes getting wide as he slid his tongue out to lick suggestively at his top lip. "What do you want?" "Hands and knees," Steed said sternly. "What I want is to fuck you from behind. I want to fuck you while I feel that amazing ass on me. I'm going to fuck you, and you're going to love it, okay?" "Fucking hell, Steed." Ed sounded shocked. "Yes, I will." Ed got on his hands and knees. "Edward," Steed snapped. "You know better than that. You want your knee to hurt all day tomorrow?" "No, Steed." Ed reached over to the sofa and grabbed a pillow and placed it under his knees. There you go, Steed said sweetly. Ed resumed his position. He arched his back and pushed his ass up and made a pretty picture for Steed. Steed got on his knees and shuffled forward until he was behind Ed. Steed slicked his finger with lube and pressed into Ed's swollen pink hole. We still good, sweetness? He asked. Yes, so good, Ed replied. Steed slid his cock in, and Ed hitched a breath when Steed was fully seated, his hips against Ed's ass. Steed held steady for a moment. Ah, he moaned. You feel so good. So slick and hot. Steed began to slowly thrust into Ed. Did you enjoy yourself, Edward? Steed said darkly. Did you like riding my cock? I love it. I fucking love it. You looked so pretty, Steed said as he continued to fuck Edward faster and harder. You're so beautiful. You're the most beautiful man I've ever seen. Ed was whining a little noise every time Steed pushed his hips forward. The sound alone was making Steed wild with desire. Do you want it harder, my darling? Steed asked. Fuck me harder, Ed groaned. Steed moved his hands to Ed's lower back for leverage as he pounded into him. He thought of how all his other sexual experiences had been so sadly lacking compared to what he felt with Ed. He felt this tremendous lust every time he saw Ed's long, lean, naked body, that beard, his flowing locks, his elegant fingers, those expressive liquid brown eyes, his beautiful cock, now soft and spent, and that luscious ass, his tawny skin peeping out from all the dark ink. He was every dream Steed had or could even imagine. He loved him so much. He wanted to be with him every day. The idea of Ed letting Steed fuck him like this every day brought Steed closer to the edge. Oh, Edward, he cried out, I love you so much. Are you mine, my darling? Steed begged as he slammed into Ed over and over. I'm yours. No one will ever touch me like this again, just you, Ed cried out. Steed knew his orgasm was coming. I'm gonna come, Steed cried. Come in me, love, Ed said. Fill me up. I want it. I fucking need it. Steed ejaculated harder than he thought he ever had. This feeling of ecstasy he never knew existed, and love he never thought was possible. Oh, God, Steed cried out, and his orgasm overcame him. Oh, my love. He gave one last thrust before he collapsed onto Ed's back, wrapping his arms around his middle and mouthed kisses on his spine. Stay in me, Ed said softly. Yes, Steed whispered back, but he eventually softened and slid out. Ed carefully lowered himself onto his stomach, and Steed stayed on top of him like a weighted blanket, gently kissing Ed's neck and shoulders. Steed rose up and went to the bathroom for a damp cloth he used to wipe them both down before he laid back with Ed and pulled a blanket over them. Christ, he was so beautiful. He was unreal. Steed loved him so much. He wanted Ed with him, and not just for Christmas, but forever. Should we? Steed thought as they both rested and caught their breath. Maybe we could. Edward, would you? Oh, God, what was he doing? Was he about to propose? He'd love to marry Ed, having him every day like this, knowing they would share their life, having Ed for his love and partner the rest of their lives. But stupid reality had to rear its ugly head. It wouldn't work. Ed has his life on the stage, he travels for work and has crazy hours, and he's free. Steed had a house and children to consider, potlucks and baseball games and school plays. He would be so tiresome to live with full-time, what with his quirks and needs. Stop pushing, he told himself. Be happy with what you have. It's good. He loves you. Would I what? Ed responded while playing with Steed's hair, twisting the curls around his fingers, then pulling them out to let go and have them spring back. Would you want to stay for New Year's? Ed laid, feeling satiated, with Steed on his back. It was so comfortable. He could sleep there all night like that, but he knew it wasn't practical. He needed to clean up, and his knee was already starting to ache. But he held off for a few minutes, more enjoying the closeness with Steed. Steed cleaned them both before laying back next to Ed and pulling a warm blanket over them. Ed played with Steed's lovely hair. He liked twisting the curls in his fingers. "Edward, would you—" "Would I what?" Ed responded. Steed sounded so emotional and soft. Was he going to propose? Oh, fuck. Wouldn't that be just like Steed, who loved romance, proposing on Christmas Day by the tree after they had just made love? Ed steeled himself, waiting for the question, knowing what his answer would be. "Would you want to stay for New Year's?" "Oh," Ed said, trying not to sound disappointed. "Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, I assumed I would anyway, but sure, love that." Soon, Steed was asleep on his side while Ed gently brushed the hair over his forehead. He felt foolish for thinking Steed would propose. He shouldn't have assumed. Steed wouldn't propose, and that was okay. It was one of the rare times Ed did not fall instantly asleep. Instead, he spent time staring at this man who had given him the gift no one else ever had. This glorious love affair, and a family he never knew he needed.
So there we have it. 3 little podfics for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this bit of festivities and way to call in the new year, I guess. I also want to say before I go that you should all have a go at doing this too. So if you like listening to those, why not pick out one of your favorites? Maybe start with something small, not like what I did. Pick something that's like a couple thousand words or something, give it a go. And if you can get the author's permission, you should send it in and we can put it on for the podcast. So to do that, once you record that, you just email it to ourflagmeansfanfiction@gmail.com. And you can also just email for anything else. You want to do your own episode? You want to be on a guest on an episode? You got an idea for one that you think would be a really cool topic that you want to tell us about? Do that. And I hope everyone will give making a podfic a go at least, because that's what got me started, was sending one in. So I hope everyone else who, if you're thinking maybe I'll do that, then you should go do it. And the podcast is on Instagram and Blue Sky and stuff, so look out for that. There's always lots of silly memes going on Instagram when I remember that app exists and go look at it, then I see them. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy those. And yeah, we're going to hopefully do a couple more, because we didn't do these podfic appetizers for a while there, but hopefully we'll get back to doing them occasionally. And yeah, if you want them happening, then send in your files. Alright, see you guys. Bye. Oh, wait, what's the tagline? I should say the tagline. Do creations, be cringe, commit crime. I think that's it.